Hello, ladies. Welcome to the Mindset to Manifest podcast. This is episode 1, where I will be talking all about authenticity. Now, I am going to start out talking about my business journey and how it relates to authenticity. However, I will go into relationships and money and self-expression, as well as our self-concept and what it truly means to be authentic in this day and age. Of course, I am recording this in 2024, so I am going to be speaking from my perspective in this year and talking about how social media has influenced our ability to be authentic. Now, as a business owner, I have had many evolutions of my authentic representation. So when I started coaching, I really had no idea what I was doing. And that's being pretty generous. I really was so naive to the world of business, and I had no formal education on business. I pretty much only knew what my dad had taught me as his experience as an entrepreneur, and I knew a little bit about side hustling, and I sold DIY clothing. I sold necklaces and bracelets that I designed. I had sold my art before. I had sold crochet items, and so on and so forth. So sales necessarily wasn't new to me, but truly being a business owner was new to me. And even more than that, being an influencer. I think a lot of times we forget that coaches are influencers. Our number one job is to influence you to make decisions that improve your life in some way. Whether you are a health coach or a mindset coach or a manifestation coach, whatever it is you're coaching on, the job as a coach really is to give you the information and inspire you with that information so that you can make a transformation within your own life. So when I began coaching, my authenticity in that was kind of limited because I was so nervous about showing up in the business world because I didn't feel like I had enough business experience to position myself as an authority. I also was younger. I was 24 when I started this, and so I did have that imposter syndrome a little bit of like, who am I to tell these people what to do? I've only lived so much life. However, what I realize in hindsight is despite my young age, I did live through a lot of life experiences. I did have a lot of lessons that really impacted me at that age, by that time in my life. And not only that, I do see myself as a very deeply spiritual person. I love philosophy and I love psychology and human behavior and, the idea of what are we here for and what is our purpose as a human being. And for those of you who don't know, I am a Muslim revert, so it was about a year ago that I reverted, and that has been another evolution of my existence here. So all of that plays a part in who I am today and how I show up in business today. But I have really been wrestling with this understanding of who am I as an authentic person. I am really driven by what inspires me and what lights me up. I don't believe in putting on a front to get people to like you. However, I also was raised undiagnosed with ADHD and autism, and I do not have a formal autism diagnosis, although the signs are very clear, and I do have a formal ADHD diagnosis. So when I grew up, I learned to mask as a survival tactic. And if you are not aware of what this is, masking is what neurodivergent people do in order to safely assimilate into society. So we will participate in social culture in a way that maybe isn't the most authentic to us because it prevents us from being bullied or othered in some way. Now, obviously, most of us are not doing this consciously. We are not trying to be something we're not. We're just trying to feel accepted. And especially with social media in this day and age, everybody's longing for this connection because connection means acceptance to us. And connection is so deeply rooted in our survival as a species because we are creatures of community. So if you feel as though you cannot be your authentic self and be accepted by the group, your subconscious will sort of take over and start to mask your traits, your personality, and your character so that you're more digestible to other people. The other thing that can happen too, especially if you grew up neurodivergent, is you could have experienced bullying or especially I notice a lot of neurodivergent parents who are not aware that they are neurodivergent, who raise their children, they're sort of repeating the same cycles that their parents repeated with them to try and force them into a box, to really enforce this idea of this is the right way to do things and all other ways are wrong, which tends to separate children from their authentic selves, again, going back to that sense of safety. So what I've observed in the past few years, especially post-pandemic, is people are so tired of being inauthentic. They are tired of wearing the mask. They are tired of all of these trivial rules that society has set up for them. And not only are they consciously tired of it, but I believe that on a subconscious, on a soul level, on a spiritual level, we just can't take it anymore. We can't stand to show up in the world in a way that is no longer genuine. We can't pretend to like our jobs anymore. We can't pretend that we're okay with the social injustices that are existing in our society. We don't want to fit into gender roles sometimes because of how traumatic it's been. And I think that there's this sort of bubbling to the surface of a generation or multiple generations of people who are deciding to put their foot down and say, you know what, I'm going to do right by me. And whatever society says, I will face the consequences, which is a really, really beautiful thing. And then there's also this bandwagoning that's happening where I feel like because certain voices are coming out saying this is my authentic truth and this is who I am, other people are sort of adopting that as their own truth. So instead of this mass awakening and unmasking, I feel as though it's bringing an even deeper layer of dissociation from the self. So it's getting really confusing out there. And of course, I cannot speak for everybody's experience. This is merely my observation. But I find that now, more than ever, we really, really do need to connect with ourselves in a way that allows us to get to know ourselves. So as I mentioned before, I've been evolving as a business owner, and something in me in the past month has just been unsatisfied. And really, I've been racking my brain trying to figure this out. What is unsatisfying for me? Because I love coaching. I love showing up for other people. I love to help people feel supported. I really enjoy teaching and giving people the tools that they need to succeed. And my brain is just this beautiful compilation of all the things that I've learned, all the advice that has helped me through my worst days, that I want to be a resource for people. So I know that this is not a lack of passion. And since I've been doing this for almost 4 years now, I don't believe that it's a lack of knowledge of what works in the business world. I know that posting on social media every day works for some people. I know that, coaching calls one-to-one works for some people. I know that paid advertisement works for some people. I know that, Other platforms that I don't currently use, like TikTok or Twitter, work for some people. They work for plenty of people, in fact. But none of that has ever felt right to me. And I believe the deeper truth for me here, and you may be able to relate to this even if you're not a business owner, is that the way that the rest of the world is doing life just doesn't fit for you. And maybe you've been feeling this disconnection, this dissatisfaction of, I don't know what's missing. I don't know why everything feels kind of off, feels kind of wrong. I don't know why I can create success for myself, but it's just not scratching that itch. It's just not satisfying enough. I feel as though when I do reach a goal, there's just this lingering feeling of, but there's something more, something different, something I'm not seeing, something I'm not experiencing. And it's like this hunger, again, on a soul level that is just unsatiated. If any of that relates to you, I truly believe this is the authenticity wound. And the reason it's coming up more and more is because your soul cannot play pretend for very long before it gets depressed. Now, some backstory, I was depressed for 17 years, chronically depressed, which means every single day of my life I woke up and felt a weight on my chest. It was difficult to get out of bed. I had anxiety socializing, anxiety being around family, anxiety going to school, anxiety in the workplace. I had a ton of other chronic health conditions related to that. As someone, again, who grew up undiagnosed ADHD and autistic, I did struggle with CPTSD, which is complex post-traumatic stress disorder from bullying, from emotional abuse and neglect from my family, and ultimately just not being able to be my authentic self. So when we think about depression, the idea is that you are being pushed down, you're being held down, and you're not able to fully blossom into the being that you were designed to be. I honestly believe that this is due to the fact that you are not safe, or you don't feel safe to be who you really are and to show up in this world the way that you were designed to show up in this world, which of course has long-term effects. And these are serious effects. They're, very psychologically pressing consequences to not being your authentic self. So authenticity is much more than just being able to be who you are and loving who you are. It's also being able to step fully into your purpose. And the reason I believe purpose is so important, it's so crucial for you to live your purpose, is that is what you were made for. Now, I do believe in consciousness, and the definition of God for me is consciousness, not necessarily a giant man separate from human beings. I believe that we were created in honor of consciousness. We were created as a physical representation of consciousness and given a physical world to manipulate, to express our consciousness. Now, you don't have to agree. You can believe whatever you want to believe, but the relevance of this here is that when you, as a conscious being, are not being used the way that you were designed to be, you cannot be fulfilled. You won't be happy or satisfied. And again, this is coming from my own experience and my own evolution. The most safe and free to be myself that I have been in my life was also the happiest time in my life. And on the contrary, the times in my life that I had to shield and mask myself from the world in order to feel safe or to avoid criticism or avoid emotional manipulation really made me shut down all the beautiful parts of myself and lock them away because they couldn't be safe. Recently, I wrote a journal entry relating to my inner child and talking about her in a way where I realize how free that part of me is. But the older part of me, right, present day me, doesn't feel safe to let her out. And this is again because of the conditioning from my family, from society, that has led me to believe I'm not allowed to be my fullest, most authentic self. And I know a lot of you listening feel that way as well. But what I have come to realize is we're only here for a short time. We are only here for however many years we are given, and none of us know how many that is. You don't know if you're going to live until your 30s or live until your 90s. And it's a long enough lifespan, I think we forget how important it is to make the most of our time. However, the older we get, of course, the more we realize we have so little time here to use to express ourselves. And I'm definitely not middle-aged, but I feel like I'm in this revolution of sorts where I'm realizing no relationship, no job, no career, no possession, no anything outside of myself is worth sacrificing my authentic expression. And I wish I had learned this sooner, and part of me did learn this sooner, but I didn't feel quite safe to step fully into the most confident version of me and the most authentic version of me, but I do today. And I honestly believe that that's why I've felt led to make this podcast episode today. I've been toying with the idea of a podcast for some time now, but this topic, more than anything, has just been on my heart. And I'm sure you can tell in my voice there is some emotion behind this topic that it's a little bit heavy for me. It's a little bit difficult for me to speak about authenticity despite knowing its importance, but I am pushing through that feeling of resistance because somebody somewhere, sometime, somehow needs to hear this. So if you are here, my clock just turned 555, which is the number of change. So it's time for a change. Quite literally, it is the time of change for us. And that is such a powerful thing. When I started my business, I knew I wanted to help women change. I knew that if I could show you, if I could inspire you, if I could demonstrate for you what change looks like and what a commitment to change looks like, that you could get yourself out of whatever situation you've been in. Now, I don't talk about this very often in my videos. I tend to be a very private person when it comes to my personal life. However, I am also committed to showing up, again, authentically and honestly, and also leading by example. So I'm going to be a little bit vulnerable here and tell you, I have been homeless. I have lived out of my car. I am divorced from my first husband, and I have children with him, and it's been difficult. Of course, I did just reveal I was depressed for 17 years, and that I am diagnosed ADHD and undiagnosed autistic. And I have had many unfortunate chapters in my life where I did not want to be on this planet anymore. I did not want to exist in this body, in this life anymore. And the one thing that kept me going, I believe, was my spirituality and knowing that there's a reason I'm here. I didn't come here to experience being myself for no reason. And I don't feel called to share my story for pity. I'm very proud of myself and how far I've come. And I'm not looking for validation. What I'm looking to do is to give you the right words, give you the right story or message so that whatever it is you're going through, you know that you're not alone, and you know that you can overcome it. And again, I'm speaking as someone who's been through many dark days, so by no means am I this superhuman, and I am not immune to stress or struggle. In fact, I lost some very important family members when I was young, and, it really showed me how precious life is. And so my mission here is to help you be your most confident and successful self. And to me, by definition, as of today, is to be your most authentic self. To be the you that you know you came here to be. To show up in the world the way only you can. To build a career the way only you are meant to build. To use your voice in some way, or your body, your skill, your talent, whatever is on your heart, I want you to trust it. I want you to really trust. And what that word means is, don't worry about what's outside of you. Being authentic has nothing to do with what is outside of you and everything to do with honoring the person that you were made to be. And in my experience, like I said, the more authentic that I become, the more permission I give myself to just be me, whatever that means, moment to moment. I mean, I've changed my name, I've changed my hair, I've changed my wardrobe, I have changed where I live, I have changed my career path, I have changed how I see myself so many times, but I've always been myself. And I've never regretted being myself. I may have felt some shame attached to that, something that I can work through with different therapeutic modalities, of course, but I would take the shame and consequences of being my authentic self compared to the depression that comes from trying to hide who I am any day of the week. So now I want to get into how authenticity helps us to manifest better. Now, we are always manifesting. You can't turn it off. It's like breathing or thinking thoughts. Like, we really can't turn this machine off. We can't disconnect from consciousness until we are no longer living in these bodies anymore. So when it comes to manifesting intentionally, that's where our power lies. We're all doing it unconsciously. From the time that we're born, we are absorbing information from the world and interpreting that information, and then whatever we've interpreted, whatever conclusions we've come to through that interpretation, we're then projecting back into the world. And this means that we are constantly creating our reality moment to moment. The beautiful part about this is once we realize that that's what we're doing, once we understand and can conceptualize what it means to manifest, we can give ourselves permission to take our power back. Before we fully develop into adults, before we recognize our free will, before we become conscious of our patterns and behaviors and beliefs and assumptions, we are just kind of floating through life. And there comes a time where we awaken and we realize, oh, hey, actually, I'm the one steering the ship. And that is the best place to be, is in that realization of, oh, I'm creating this all. The problem is when you can't be authentic. And so when you learn about conscious manifesting, it feels heavy and it feels pointless sometimes and it feels discouraging. And if you go into conscious manifestation, but you don't yet know who you are, you're not going to be able to manifest the life you truly desire. I know this because I've always been really good at manifesting. And what I mean by that is I've always been able to look at something in the world and pointed to it and been like, I want that thing, and made it happen. With my first marriage, it was very much like that. I chose my partner and I was like, I want to be with that person and it's just going to happen. In fact, it was like that for previous partners. And again, I want to remind you, I'm a Muslim revert. This is not how most Muslims feel or relate to relationships. This is my experience. But it was never hard for me to manifest relationships. I just looked at someone and I knew I wanted to be with them, and I trusted that some way, somehow, it was going to happen. Again, going back to why authenticity is important with conscious manifestation is the reason I wanted those people was likely out of ego and trauma and wounding. Now looking back, I can't say that I truly loved those people. I was attached to them. So even though I was able to manifest those relationships and it was easy, they were not fulfilling. It was an uphill battle. It was a constant struggle. And I do truly believe I had to go through that to evolve, to understand myself. For every traumatic relationship I've had in my life, it uncovered wounds that needed healing, and it has allowed me to flourish into the person I am today, which is a beautiful thing. So I don't regret that at all. I just know that there's a big difference between consciously manifesting and authentically manifesting. And this difference is so key because you can build an entire life for yourself consciously manifesting and not feel fulfilled. I've done this in relationships, and I've done this in business, and I've done this in friendships, and I have moved to a new city hoping that it would fulfill me, and it didn't. So I took all of those past experiences, and in the past year, in the past 18 months actually, I've really been digging deep and unraveling this tangled mess I created to understand what was the problem here. Why was I able to consciously manifest what I believed I wanted, and then I didn't even really want it? It didn't really fit. It felt hard. It felt heavy. And what I realized today is that it's because I was not being my authentic self. I was manifesting from my wounds. And when you manifest from your wounds, you can never be satisfied. It's so disheartening to hear for some people to realize that what you manifest or what you feel called to manifest may not be what your soul wants. And I don't want this to be discouraging in any way. I want it to be a hopeful message that the more that you focus on yourself and who are you and who do you want to be, the better quality your conscious manifestations are going to be. I coach a lot of women on relationships, and I see this time and time again. They don't realize it yet, but they're manifesting a specific person from their trauma. So the person they're chasing, the person they're desperately holding on to, is a reflection of their childhood wounding. And even though I can see it clearly, I can't just tell them. I can't just tell you what your problem is, because that would be disempowering to you. Instead, I have to nudge you or encourage you into seeing the truth, seeing that if you truly loved yourself, you wouldn't be tolerating certain quality of relationship. You wouldn't be tolerating breadcrumbs or trying to force a relationship where there is none. And instead, you would love yourself enough to do what's best for you, to release them if that's necessary, and to continue investing in your growth and stepping more and more into your authenticity and allowing yourself to evolve. And then the right person is going to come into your life. And it might be the same person, and it might not be. I can't speak for you. But what I can speak on is the fact that there were times in my life where I manifested exactly what I was intending to manifest. And again, in the beginning, it was like, oh yeah, I'm so excited. I feel so powerful. I feel so awesome. Of course I get what I want. And then that quickly faded into, oh my gosh, I don't think I actually want this. And there were various reasons why, but ultimately it comes down to not being my authentic self. So If you really want your manifestation to last and not just to be a flash in the pan, if you want a marriage that lasts a lifetime and not just a summer fling, you have to be showing up as your authentic self. And the hardest part about this is you have to learn to do it unapologetically. And I think I'm going to talk about that in the next podcast episode, but being able to be your authentic self and trust that whatever quote unquote consequences there might be, they're worth it, because you're not here for anybody else. You are not here to be a people pleaser. You are not here to serve another human being. You are not here to make everybody around you happy while simultaneously denying yourself of that very same happiness. You came here as you, with your talents, your skills, your gifts, and your abilities that you have developed throughout your lifetime to serve your purpose. Some of you listening were meant to be singers or dancers or actors. Some of you listening were meant to be writers or poets or, invent the next groundbreaking technology that's going to change the world in some profound way. Some of you are just really good at sports and you're meant to go to the Olympics and compete and take a medal home to make your country proud. Some of you are meant to be doctors or lawyers or engineers. Some of you are meant to be cooks and feed people new recipes and change the way people think about food. Some of you are meant to bring justice to your families, to your communities, to your countries in some way. Some of you are meant to be thought leaders to inspire other people to become their best selves. Some of you are meant to be coaches, if you're not already, like myself, who are here to inspire others and teach others how to become their most successful selves. Some of you are meant to be spiritual healers or, do body work for people so that they can show up in the world in a healthy way. There are an infinite number of purposes that we are given as human beings, but the bottom line is you need to be living that purpose. You need to be standing in your authenticity, no matter what you're doing in the world. Because when you do so, you are changing the world. You are making this world a better place. You are inspiring and encouraging other people to do the same. And if we all do this, if everybody on the planet could be their authentic self, we would win against the forces of evil. And I know that sounds so cliche and cheesy, but it's the truth. We wouldn't have war and famine and hatred and racism if everyone was genuinely happy with themselves. It's not possible to live your authentic life and fulfill yourself and feel abundant and feel loved and feel peaceful and completely submit to the lifestyle that your inner being is calling you to submit to, that your consciousness, your connection to God is calling you to submit to, and not be a happy person and not be a kind person. I truly believe that negativity and nastiness and jealousy and envy and disdain and judgment comes from our own soul being unfulfilled with ourselves. It comes from our own consciousness feeling shameful or unsatisfied with who we've chosen to be in this life. And the only cure, the only medicine for this is authenticity. So whatever it is that you are manifesting, whether that is a relationship, whether that is a business, whether it is starting a new life in a new country or trying a new experience, I want you to reflect for a little bit. What do you believe that experience will do for your authentic self? Would it please your authentic self? Will it fulfill your authentic self? Are you going to progress into who you were meant to be by taking that action? And if not, why do you want to take that action? Why do you want to be in that industry? Why do you want to be in a relationship with that person? And there are no wrong answers here. This exercise is not for the sake of judging yourself or passing any criticism towards yourself. It is purely to help you understand and connect with your inner being so that you can move through this life more authentically. Thank you all for tuning in to the first episode of the Mindset to Manifest podcast. I am so grateful to have each and every one of you here, and I am delighted to share more of my thoughts and ideas in this format. If you do have any questions or any topics that you would like me to cover in future episodes, please comment on this video, and I will be glad to touch on them in future recordings. Thank you to everyone who has subscribed to my channel, and if you have not yet, go ahead and hit that bell icon to be notified so you never miss out on powerful tips, inspiring stories, and essential guidance so that you too can manifest the life of your dreams. Thank you, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye!